Regarding the official title, Liberation. Okay, it's going to translate it as Liberation because, again, Revelation and Liberation are the same in katakana if you choose to say it like a re instead of a re. Regarding the official title, Liberation, could you tell us about the meaning behind the name and the process that led to its decision? To put it simply, this is about addressing the expectations of those who have followed us through to the second installment, wondering what kind of ending it will be. This is a trilogy of remakes that was announced to mark the 20th anniversary of the original, but before we knew it, we are about to reach the 30th anniversary. What do we want to say again about remaking it in this era? The answer is, what was hidden will be revealed. That's the meaning of Revelation/Liberation. Very interesting. In this remake series, Nomura has always made the final decision. This time too, we left it up to him, and he agonized over the decision from 3 options until the very end. He asked me several times which one is the best, but I told him, you can decide this, Nomura. Just say it decisively. And I supported his decision. So yeah, Nomura has been naming all of these games. He is the creative director of the FF7 re-trilogy. Pretty much everything goes through him as the creative visionary of these projects. In the overseas version, it was mentioned that Mr. Hamaguchi has already played the game about 40 times. Is it already in a state where you can play it completely? Hamaguchi says that's right. The game is now playable from start to finish, including the side content. There are still some temporary 3D assets and other things. We're continuing the work of replacing them. Right now, we're balancing the game while playing it ourselves. We're in the final stages of development, working on the final touches every day. We're planning to release it simultaneously worldwide on multiple platforms next spring. Very good picture of Hamaguchi. If the game is already playable from start to finish, is there a possibility of exhibiting it at events such as the Tokyo Game Show where players can try it out? We don't have a concrete plan yet. We are considering letting everyone try it out around that time. Maybe you'll get to play it if you are in Japan, in Tokyo, at the Tokyo Game Show. TGS demo shadow drop. I don't know if they would drop it like for everyone then, but I think they'll do it for anyone who's at the show for sure. The footage shown at SGF was from the PlayStation 5 version, but it is already playable on Nintendo Switch 2 and other platforms. It's running on Switch 2 as well. However, Switch 2 requires special optimization at the end to be stable. So we plan to proceed with optimization for the Switch 2 after the development of the PlayStation 5 and PC version is complete. Landing the Highwind, like in the original story, is difficult. So let's just use a parachute instead of landing. The Highwind was a frequent discussion featured among fans regarding its implementation in the 3rd game. In the Ultimania interview, Mr. Nomura mentioned that landing would be a problem. So I was surprised to see in this video that the answer was parachute descent. Was this decided smoothly? Hamaguchi: I was in charge of this part, but I thought having the Highwind fly freely all over the world just like in the original story was something that absolutely had to be realized, so I kept saying that without wavering. As you said, landing the Highwind on the ground was difficult. The Highwind is on a massive scale. If you try to land it on the ground like in the original version, you run into various problems, such as the Highwind being incredibly huge compared to land, or the fact that it can only land on flat ground. Yeah, and I'm waiting for people who are like ridiculous about this stuff to be like Fortnite-ification of Final Fantasy VII. Bear in mind that in the original game, you kind of like parachute in the Midgar. It's still ultimately a reference to Final Fantasy VII and not being like Fortnite. But again, I think bad faith people will make it look like that. Ultimately, this was like a really good design choice. People don't understand how difficult it is make something like the Highwind. And also too, if you had landing pads, the Highwind wouldn't be fun, right? Like, it wouldn't be fun if the game told you where to land the airship. Then it would be no different than just choosing where to fast travel. But this is something that you can actually, jump out the airship. And I think this is also something that Final Fantasy XVII should be entirely built around. Creative workaround, very creative workaround. I'm so impressed that they came up with that solution. The improved visuals compared to the original version have actually made some points more difficult. So the idea idea that landing and unloading the aircraft would be impossible, I felt even before developing Revelations toward the end of Rebirth, and it has always been a challenge for me. So I thought about various ways to let players experience the scale of the game. So in this day and age, parachuting down is a familiar sight in battle royale titles and the like. Thought having such an easily recognizable symbol would make it easier for users to get into the game. So we decided on the current form of parachuting. This was very early in the development team. I told the team, this is what we're going to go with, and we've been steadily moving forward ever since without wavering. Yeah, I do think that's true, right? Like, I do think that, you know, like, this is something that you can kind of show a younger person, and they probably will relate it to Fortnite, but that's actually good for them, right? Like, they'll relate it to something that they already know and like, but, I don't think it's bad. You use a parachute to descend. What would happen when you want to return to the Highwind? That's actually a good question. In that case, you can fast travel back to the Highwind immediately. You can return to flying mode, and you can also return to the Highwind in a state you can explore. Okay, great. That's awesome. When it comes to movement, we want to prioritize convenience as it is typical for modern games. Once you parachute down to your destination, you have many options. You can walk, ride a Chocobo, or parachute again. However, if we force players to use one of those options, they might get bored and think, another parachute? So we've also made it to fast travel places you've already been. The same lesson applies when crossing continents. Whether it's Calm or Cosmo Canyon, if you've been there before, you can fly. But if you haven't been there, you need to parachute down first. If there are unexplored areas within an area, the design allows you to parachute nearby and then explore. While maintaining high usability, those who want to use a parachute can, of course, do so as well. That's cool, man. That's how Final Fantasy XVII should be designed. That is exactly how it should be designed from the start. So just like in the original version, there's a map of the Highwind as well. Of course, the interior of the Highwind will be memorable for those who played the original version. So we've recreated that. But it's not just that. As you explore the world map, the interior of the Highwind will also be updated according to your progress. I love an updated hub world, or an updated hub in this case, and the Highwind is going to be perfect for that. It will be decorated, and the crew's conversations will change. Some crew members will even give you orders like, go and do this. As you explore the world map, it constantly changes. So you'll likely feel like, let's go back to the Highwind once I progressed a bit in the game. In the story, after each story arc ends, there's a scene where everyone gathers on the Highwind to discuss what we should do next. So it serves as a kind of portal. That's pretty cool. In the original version, it took quite a while to unlock the Highwind, but how is it in this version? I can't go into too much detail, but you do get it relatively early in the game. I think everyone is really looking forward to see how the game starts, and it has a fun beginning that's typical of the third installment. So please look forward to that as well. And I think in another interview, he says like 5 to 6 hours. So we'll take a look at that soon. I think that was the RPG site interview, right? Will we be able to travel around the entire world, including Midgar and Wutai, which we couldn't visit in Rebirth? Hamaguchi, you can fly freely everywhere. You can go to various islands, jump off from them, and explore freely. Of course, there are areas you can't go to, but basically, you can fly freely anywhere with the Highwind. There was something I was constantly going back and forth with the development team saying, this is something I absolutely cannot compromise on. But when you reach the end, you suddenly find yourself going in the opposite direction. You start to feel like the star was actually round after all. Yeah. Okay. Wow, okay, so just like the OG world map, the world is round. It's not flat. I believe that's what I'm reading, and that's actually a huge detail. That's also really impressive technically. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. The world is not flat. The world actually does loop. I'm trying to think, how the hell did they do that on a technical level? Because that is such a complex thing to do. But I'm like really, really glad to know that. Flat Earther Re-Trilogy fans are in shamble. You say that, but like, there probably are. Like, I feel like FF7 is so polarized in so many different ways that there probably is someone out there like super mad that like their flat Earth, flat Gaia headcanon just got squashed with this. I really hope you get to interview Hamaguchi yourself this news cycle. Me too, man. Maybe. Okay, so twice now I posted, like, when I posted years back I want to interview Sakaguchi, it happened. When I posted I wanted to speak to someone who worked on Final Fantasy 15, it happened. Maybe I need to just tweet out, I need to speak to Hamaguchi-san. Maybe. Maybe someone will just be like, let's do that. I'm trying to make it happen with Nomura, but like, when's the last time he had like a proper interview? I don't even know. Other games in the Final Fantasy series also had world maps like that, right? So you can fly That's right, so you can fly freely around the world map in the Highwind, jump down whenever you like, wherever you like, and explore the area. Will the areas that appear last time appear again this time? That was a really tricky point, but I also felt if we cut out a continent without a reason, we get a lot of angry responses. That is very true. They would definitely get a lot of angry responses. And it would also just be disappointing, right? Because you want that full freedom of the world. Even if we thought, surely no one will use Gingaga anymore, we couldn't cut it out unless it was for a very good reason. For example, we could have come up with a reason like meteor fell and Gingaga disappeared. No, you could not have come up with that reason, but that would be a bit far-fetched, and users who were attached to it would be furious. Yeah, that would be ass. I would be very disappointed with that. I'm curious how different Revelation will be compared to Rebirth, at least in terms of content and quality. Capcom nailed that and earned huge trust. Yeah, for sure. I think that Revelation will be, I mean, it sounds like a very different gameplay experience than Rebirth altogether, right? Because Rebirth, you were mostly on foot, you were unlocking chocobos, and you were like doing what people call the Ubisoft towers, right? But in this, you're flying around the world map and you're diving down and then you're going and exploring different parts of the world. This sounds fundamentally different, and it also sounds like, bluntly, just like a way more interesting game than I think Rebirth was in terms of like exploration, in terms of exploring the world. And that's not even like a slight at Rebirth necessarily. It's just to say that a airship really makes a game fun and cool and like really interesting to explore. Like building an entire game around an airship is sick, actually. It's really sick. It's like the coolest thing ever. Name another AAA RPG where you have an airship and you can fly around an entire world. The world is actually round. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, arguably Expedition 33, maybe, but that's like a traditional world map, right? Like, but this is like an open world. And I do think that like, it is actually quite different. And I cannot name another AAA video game, another AAA RPG where you can actually fly around the entire planet, you know what I'm saying, and like jump out of an airship at any time. Kingdom Trigger, thank you so much for the super chat. Does anyone get the vibe that Hamaguchi wants to make a non-linear story game after this? I'm not a fan of branching narratives, but I do feel like him/Indo want a more Western RPG style narrative with FF17. I've never seen, at least offhand, a Japanese developer actually do that, so I do think it would be pretty interesting if they did, but I don't think people would like that for Final Fantasy. I don't know how they'd feel about it, but I would certainly be open to it. I think it sounds pretty cool. But I think most people are kind of wanting Final Fantasy to get back on like track. So I feel like that might be too much of a deviation for people right now. You have to build trust again before you start making those type of drastic changes. So basically, we decided to keep all the areas. However, if we kept all the areas in the previous games, there would be complaints like, there's just more for the sake of it, and we felt like we didn't offer a different space from Rebirth. It would diminish the appeal of the work, right? That makes sense. So does that mean the old areas are a little different in this game? Hamaguchi, just like in the original, weapons appear in this game, but they cause natural phenomenon similar to tectonic shifts around the world, changing the terrain in different ways. So while it has a similar atmosphere, the terrain is completely different from Rebirth, and the way you explore will also change. We've also included some novelty that you'll notice if you're familiar with the previous game. That is so sick, man. That is so sick. That is so cool. Because basically, like, that actually makes sense with the existing lore, right? Like, it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like, oh, they had to come up with something as an excuse. That is like the way the game's lore works. That's brilliant. One more thing about exploration is that in the previous game, each area had a chocobo with abilities suited to the nature of the area's exploration, and these chocobos were placed in each area. However, in this game, you'll be traveling with a single chocobo named Pico throughout the game. As Pico grows, but first of all, Pico is back. Like, let's go. As Pico grows, the exploration changes. Towards the end, Pico will be able to fly anywhere and go freely. For example, the grasslands areas in the previous game was basically designed for exploring a flat world map. But in this game, as Pico grows, You can explore in space rather than on a flat plane. You can fly freely in the grasslands and even glide. And of course, you can also fly from above with a parachute instead of a chocobo. Pico becoming FF7's Boko is freaking cool. Yeah, it is. Yeah, he's basically the new Boko, 100%. This is so cool. Pico is Pico is getting a fucking glow up, bros. So map exploration can now be done not only along vertical and horizontal axes, but also adding the axis of height. Even with the same map as the previous game, more spatial exploration is now possible. Players familiar with the previous game will be able to rediscover things like, I never knew the grassland could look like this in some places. In that sense, we've made sure to deliver a new experience to users, including in existing areas. It's not just the appearance and exploration that have been revamped. The content has also been updated. New quests have been prepared, so I think we've managed to create a game where areas from the previous game didn't feel like a rehash. This is so cool. We're going to find out that Pico was actually a gold chocobo. I think that actually makes sense. You're right. What if they tie Pico into like Knights of the Round? Will Pico be voiced by Ben Starr? I think that would actually be hilarious. I mean, he wants the voice of Chocobo, right? So I do think that'd be funny. I do hope that like Ben Starr like finds his way into Revelation somehow. I just think that'd be like a really cool thing to do. This game's adventure is designed to encourage side quests. You can enjoy exploring various locations right from the start. Being able to move freely in the Highwind means that the story progression is also left to the player to a certain extent this time around. The main story follows a predetermined order. However, this is not the case for side content. For example, the weapons appear in the story have a somewhat fixed order in which they must be defeated. But weapons are not involved in the story can be challenged at any time. It's okay to jump straight into the game early on, get beaten badly, and think this is impossible. This time, we prepared a lot of side content that's almost as good as the main story, so we want users to be able to choose to play it while keeping the main story in mind. That's so sick. That's so sick. That's so sick. This is exactly what I've been wanting them to do with things like all this time. Do you think Sapphire will be optional or required? Maybe an optional super boss? Since it's the new one, right? I guess making it the optional super boss might make more sense. No, because they made a point of that whole story sequence, right? So I feel like it will be a new story element. But I feel like if it is a new story element, they're gonna do like the weird meta stuff with it, you know? Like the weird FF7 meta stuff. And like a bunch of things that definitely did not happen in OG will happen in that sequence of events. So I can definitely see that happening. Yeah, and we get to fight Knights of the Round, which we'll be talking about. I think that's in a different interview though. So you're somewhat bound to the story, but there are also moments where you can act freely. That's right. Even when we're focusing on the story in certain scenes, we don't really stop the side gameplay. However, we do frequently include phrases where we say, for now, please follow the story on this continent. So the structure there is similar to previous versions of the game. However, there are also some clear differences from the previous versions. In the previous game, the areas were unlocked one by one. It was only near the end that you realized it was all a connected space. In this game, however, once you get the Highwind early on, you can explore freely all the areas using the Highwind. That is awesome. That is awesome. So that means there are quite a lot of areas you can explore right from the start? That's right. So the difficulty levels of each area are mixed, and you might find that one area is easy, but the next one is incredibly difficult. Rather than trying to conquer one area all at once, the idea is to pick and choose what you want to do in each area as you go along. As you progress through the main story and become stronger, you might think, let's try this content again. Or as you wander around, a new quest might pop up and you might think, what should I do now? The amount of content is equal to or greater than that of the previous versions of the game. So, just like with Rebirth, you'll probably find yourself wondering where to start and figure things out as you play. Damn, dude. Damn, this is so awesome. This is so damn awesome. This is like the very opposite of the past 20 years of FF. In terms of game design, this is really cool. Giant Monkey Butt, thank you so much for the super. We need a confirmation on classic unique enemies appearing like in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I need Tank Ceratops. Man, That would be very awesome. I do think that, you know, all the remaining ridiculous FF7 enemies will still show up in Revelation for sure. How do you feel about them saying you can't experience all the side content in one playthrough? Not sure how I feel. I'm kind of okay with it because re-trilogy games have basically never been designed to be played once, right? Like, they're always games that are meant to be played and played again, right? So any choice that I made in my normal playthrough, the complete opposite choices in my hard mode playthrough, and that's going to make my hard mode playthrough even more enjoyable. Yeah, I think missables are good, depending on like what they are. And like, it's not even just like missables. It's like, it sounds to me like it's more like choices that you make. And so those choices can guide the narrative in different ways. So I think that could actually be fun and make the game more replayable. And we have chapter to select, right? So I'm sure you can just go back to those chapters and do a different thing. And yeah, it'll just give you more hours to spend with FF7 for years to come. So I don't think it's bad. They are pulling a Breath of the Wild and allowing us to explore anything when we feel like it. Yeah, and I think that's really cool, provided the fact that they can do something that Breath of the Wild couldn't, and that is also tell a really compelling, explicitly told narrative. And by explicitly told, I mean like fully animated scenes that are happening in like the current timeline, and not just kind of like flashback scenes in the way that Breath of the Wild was, and a lot of environmental storytelling and things like that. But like a Final Fantasy narrative. Anyway, moving forward, people who like to take detours might find it difficult to progress through the main story, the interviewer laughed. I really think so. For meticulous people in the previous game, you could play it by saying, I won't move on to the next area until I've completed this area completely. But I don't think that's possible this time. There are many areas to go, and there's a lot of content you can't tackle right away. I think it will come down to where to draw this line. Even during a full playthrough in development, it takes a considerable amount of time to see all the content. So we set conditions for ourselves like, this time we'll only do the main story. But if we try to do all the side content, we never make any progress on the main story. This is actually good, I'm gonna be honest, because I think that Rebirth allowed people with too deep of a completionist mindset to ruin the game for themselves. Because anyone who is like playing Rebirth with the mindset of I need to 100% every zone before moving on, some people may enjoy that, but I think if I had to play the game like that, I would fucking hate it. Eventually, at some point, I would just want to move on with the story. I just want to like get to the narrative, right? Because it's one of the main reasons that you play a Final Fantasy game is to experience the story. For players to have like a push to like move the on and continue the story, it's really good. I still don't understand the criticism. People just lack self-restraint with Rebirth. To be fair, Remake kind of taught the player that you need to 100% every chapter before you move on. So it does kind of fall back on Remake's design philosophy as for why people maybe felt a need to chapter max when they played Rebirth, right? Not to say that that's fully the answer, but I do feel like Remake kind of like made people feel like they needed to do that. And then when you find out that Rebirth, you totally don't need to do that, and that's actually maybe the worst way to play for a lot of people. Yeah, because I think the best way to play Rebirth is to do a little bit of side content, but mainly focus on the main story, right? And then once you get to hard mode, you should focus on chapter maxing and side quest maxing and doing all that type of stuff. All right, like the first time around, I think you should only like hit up like the major quests, right, that are really interesting to you or that you find fascinating. But you should save most of the side content for post game. I think you're right, because Remake would tell you if you miss, there's no turning back. While in Rebirth, you could always go back. It's not like heavily set. Yeah, exactly, right? Like Remake was like, if you don't do this this cat quest, you'll never be able to come back and do it. And it does actually unlock some options for you in another quest. So yeah, if you don't do this cat quest, then like you're fucked. You might as well delete your whole file. You know what I'm saying? And so I do feel like when you give that mentality for the first game, it feels like, oh, okay, well then I need to like do that again here. When Rebirth is like the total opposite, right? So the scale of the open world has been scaled up even further. The term open world is a bit vague in its definition, but I feel that the scale of the game experience has clearly evolved to the next level compared to Rebirth. In that sense, I would like many people to check out this new style of open world game that comes after Rebirth. Very awesome. Page 2. One thing I'm still nervous about is Hamaguchi hasn't really addressed the side content design with checklists. I wish he explicitly mentioned organic exploration, no quest markers, optional dungeons. I agree. I feel like that is in there because everyone has talked about it. Hamaguchi is chronically online enough to know that that we have talked about it. So I feel like he knows. I don't know if he's really addressed it in any of these interviews. Maybe he has as we go through it because there's just so many interviews. But I agree though. Giant Monkey Butt, thank you for the super. Remove checklist and let us find the content. Yeah, exactly. You know, my philosophy on this, essentially, there should be quest markers, right? But the quest markers should only be used to essentially guide you to content that you can find organically, if that makes sense. So there may be some markers that point you to where a quest might be, and then you find it, and then when you're tracking that quest, you find things along the way that aren't on the map. Does that make sense? So there's a balance between these things are explicitly marked points on the map that give you kind of a starting place to go, and then as you go and find those marker points, that kind of organically just leads you into things that wouldn't be marked on the map as you kind of check your environment and surrounding. Moving on, Vincent can switch between beast mode and human form with a single button. Cid is an attacker who excels at aerial combat. The released video around that, Cid and Vincent will be joining the roster. I'd like to ask a little about their character traits. From the video, it looks like Vincent mainly uses guns. No, it's not exactly that guns are the main weapon. They're a slightly different type, but they're closer to characters like Yuffie, who can handle both close and long-range combat. Vincent is a bit more of an attacker than Yuffie. He's a human character who can switch freely between beast mode and human form. In the original FF7, Vincent's beast mode was a special state with a time limit, but in this game, there's no time limit. It's similar to Yuffie's shurikens. You can switch between beast mode and human form with the single press of a button. God. Okay, so it's not a limit break anymore. That's a lot different than you can control whether to make a character a close range attacker or long range. High damage attacker depending on the timing. I think that's what makes the character so enjoyable to play and will appeal to a lot of people. That sounds awesome. Dude, that sounds so cool, man. Maybe the limit break invokes his other forms. Oh, that's true. Do you like the idea of them combining 3 games into one single game after Revelation? They might call it Reunion this time. I think that would be very cool, but I couldn't feasibly see it happening. The reason I find it difficult to imagine is that combining those games together actually is an extraordinary technical challenge because they all have different stats and different ways of doing things, and so trying to stitch them all together would be crazy. Also, yeah, it would be like a 600 gigabyte game. But if they could do it, if there was like a Final Fantasy VII Remake Ultimate, it combined them all into one, it'd be very cool. Recollection would be work, yeah. It'd be a lot of work. But if they ever could do it, I just don't know if it'd be worth it for them. I'm hoping if they remake Dirge, they have Vincent play like he will play in Revelation. I think if they remake Dirge, it would still be like more like a shooter or something like that, because I feel like the gameplay of the Re-Trilogy games only works if you have party members, right? And Dirge, you wouldn't really have party members. But, so I feel like if they remade Dirge, it would still probably play different, but it'd probably be based on things he can do in the thing. Oh, let me stretch my back out a little bit. The chair. What about Cid? His fighting style seems to be the same as the original, using a spear, but what are some of his defining characteristics? He's an attacker who excels at flying and aerial combat, and he has many input techniques that can be performed in the air. While he's an attacker, he's also somewhat strong in support roles. To give an analogy, he's like an aerial version of Red 13. Now that's cool. If Red 13 is a ground type, then Cid is the aerial type, an attacker with slightly more specialized role. A tradition in the Final Fantasy series is the Dragoon's jump attack, because it allows for wide area attacks in midair. It excels at dealing with multiple enemies simultaneously. It's set within development team that it's incredibly useful for players who enjoy optimizing battle logic and efficiency. Yeah, I think that this is why, me personally, I don't care for a jump button in like the FF7R games, right? I think that it should always depend on the character and their job in the game, if they can or if they need to jump. And I think that like Yuffie and characters like Cid will have enough air tech. I don't think the other forms of Vincent will be his limit break. In the gameplay trailer, you can see one front of his ATB bar, one in front of his ATB bar. I guess this shows in which state his monster form he is in. Yeah, that would actually make a lot of sense. So it's like maybe it's like maybe a meter that you can build up to and then transform into different forms. That would also be interesting. People want a jump button for exploration mostly instead of context dependent actions. I think that like usually what I see it is like a jump button in combat. That's usually what I see people talk about it with. In the video, there was a scene where Vincent and Cid become incredibly powerful when they work together. Is this similar to the cooperation ability from last time? Yeah, it's synergy. There are cooperative elements between Cid and Vincent, as well as between them and other existing characters. Cid and Vincent are newly added this time, but I hope you'll enjoy freely combining them with the existing characters as well. For example, you can try combining Cid, Barret, and Yuffie for long-range attacks. I hope you'll freely design your party. Right then and there, he kind of mentions a cloutless party, which is something that obviously is going to happen in part 3. Cid, Barret, and Yuffie, which actually does sound like a really fun party to use. The goal is to allow each player to choose their own way of playing. The new Wear feature will also significantly change the role of the character. Speaking of battles, it was announced that a new Wear system will be added in this game. Could you tell us more about it? When we were thinking about what to do with the battle system in the third game, I discussed with battle director Indo that the only way to expand it was through add-ons. It was the same way we went from Remake to Rebirth, but when you cut out the existing battle system and put in something new, you inevitably get negative reactions. Hamaguchi, what if I told you that's also true of like the rest of the Final Fantasy series? What if I told you that that's not just how people would react to like 7, but like to Final Fantasy as a whole? So even then, we couldn't remove commands from the ATB and action fusion that we created in the first game. So we added combination techniques as an add-on. I feel like Hamaguchi is vaguely calling out the management of the franchise with that statement. Yeah. There will undoubtedly be a certain number of people who say, that's what I liked about it. So it's certainly a difficult question. So this time, we also considered adding an add-on, but both the remake and rebirth were already highly acclaimed. And in a sense, the battle systems were nearing a completion, so we wondered what we could add to them. And that's true, by the way. Like, it's really difficult for me to imagine when I was playing Rebirth, what else could they add to this system to elevate it, but also not make it so convoluted that nobody could really play it anymore or really enjoy themselves with it, because there's just too many systems and too many things going on. Their answer has been to add a job system. That's when Indo came up with the idea of Wear, inspired by the job change system of the FF series. The characters in Final Fantasy VII have defined personalities, and their roles tend to be fixed. For example, Cloud is an attacker, but with the job change, it becomes possible to create combinations like being more warrior-oriented, but also able to use magic. This makes it easier to combine characters that were previously difficult to choose due to their fixed roles. It also doesn't overlap with existing systems or functions, and it all started with the idea of, that sounds interesting. I still don't know how I feel about a job system in Final Fantasy VII. I feel like Final Fantasy VII should be unemployed. It's a regular old unemployed Final Fantasy, so to speak. But yeah, I don't know if Final Fantasy VII should have a job. I think Final Fantasy VII should be on unemployment. It would be cool if Cid was able to obtain Aerith Staff and then forge it into a sphere. That would be cool. As a job system slut, I have to disagree with you. Fair. It sounds like a light job system from the sound of it. Yeah. I'm not saying it's bad though. I'm just saying it's like, I'm like, for FF7, that's kind of crazy. But I'm not against it. I just don't know how I feel about it yet. Part of me thinks that it's like a test for FF17, which I feel like will use this system plus a job system, and they're just kind of experimenting around with it. But who knows? FF7 needs to stay on welfare? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's mostly cosmetic with movesets, that's it. That's probably what it is. It's not jobs enough to justify its existence, IMO. That's also fair. Like I said, I don't know enough about it to really have a firm take, so I'm kind of just playing off like the vague idea, a job system. I agree with you. For FF7 there was no job system at all, but if they can pull it off, I might like it. Yeah, like I said, I feel like I don't know enough about it or have experienced it yet to like really have like a firm take on it one way or the other. But it's not something I'm closed-minded to. I'm pretty open to the idea of it. It just really is going to come down to how it feels. Also too, I do kind of want the option to not change their outfits. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can equip Black Mage, but aesthetically I'm still wearing Cloud's soldier uniform. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want important moments to happen and I'm wearing like some ridiculous outfit for Cloud. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I feel like that would look, they already confirmed that. Okay. I haven't seen that yet, but I wouldn't want that. Transmog for outfits and weapons are confirmed. Okay, I didn't see that because I don't want like I don't want like silly outfits on during important source scenes. Honestly, I'm be real. I'm probably gonna turn that off then. I'm probably just gonna transmog to like their default outfits because I don't feel like I'm into like the job uniforms. You can see that from in the gameplay trailer. Same for materia presets. Okay. Since it stems from a job change, does that mean you have a wide variety of clothing styles? Hamaguchi. That's right. But this is where Indo's genius comes in. Usually with systems like this, the number of jobs increases gradually as the game progresses, and the stronger jobs are unlocked in later stages of the game. That's kind of the balance of design you get, right? We are considering placing new clothing items as rewards here as a way to guide the system. However, Indo said, the moment the clothing system is unlocked, I want all the clothing items for all characters at once. All of them? Everything. Not little by little, all at once. His intention was that if you unlock things little by little, Cloud would always start with warrior attire, then Kate Sif would have mage attire, and so on, while making it seem like you're actually walking on a game design prepared by the creators. In the end, it balances out with everyone will change it like this anyway. Instead, we want users to decide for themselves. I want Cloud to fight in this kind of role, and that's why we unlocked all the outfits at once at the beginning of the game. There are 4 outfits in total, and all 4 are unlocked for all the characters. You can delve into the deeper outfits in conjunction with the skill tree. We had a strong vision of letting users decide for themselves which outfit to use for which character, so we went along with that. 100% getting AC and KH outfits for Cloud. I think that this is the excuse. I think this is the excuse for getting the AC outfits. I do think that we'll 100% get. I don't know if we'll get the Kingdom Hearts one, but I feel like 1000% for sure that the Advent Children outfit is coming and it will be like its own job. So in terms of cosmetics, there are a lot more cosmetics possible. 4 jobs but 4 unique outfits per character, so more like 32 outfits tied to fits alone, plus cosmetic outfits too, right? It's 4 jobs plus multiple outfits that you get from quests, right? 4 per 8 characters, 30 equals 32 jobs. Okay. So wait, is it 4 jobs per character, or is it only 4 jobs? My interpretation is that there's only 4 jobs. Oh, 4 per character? Oh, 4 jobs per character? It's crazy. That is a job system. That's a full ass job system then. But ultimately, I just want to say, I think this is really cool. Something that in terms of how it fits with FF7 remains to be seen. For me, I think that more than anything, this is probably a test for Final Fantasy VII, maybe having a return to the job system. So the fighting styles will vary greatly from player to player, right? That's exactly what we're aiming for. There are already a huge number of character combinations, but the outcome also changes depending on which outfit you put on which character. There will be difference between players. In that sense, I should have mentioned this from the beginning, but the concept of this game is determination. I'm pretty sure that it's like resolution, Ketsui, yes. Which can also be translated as determination or resolution. But typically it's resolve is also another one. And resolve has kind of been the terminology that they've been using in the kind of more official English translation. But resolve is another way that you can translate Ketsui. Yeah, so resolve is what he's using there in terms of like the official word that they use in the English vernacular for all of the game's official stuff. They translate it as resolve on the SGF stage, yeah. So in all the official translations, they're using resolve, and I'm pretty sure that resolve may have been one of the 3 options that they mentioned as a potential name for the third part of FF7R. I do feel like resolve makes a lot of sense. Resolve and resolution can both be nouns, by the way. That's true. Anyway, going back, in that sense, I should have mentioned this from the beginning, but the concept of this game is resolve. In the story, Cloud and his friends face their final battle, confronting the burdens they carry in a firm resolve to face it. Actually, it's like really funny that this sentence ends up translating it as resolve. For us creators, this is the finale, so we approach it with the determination to bring it to a definite conclusion. Both of these uses here, I'm sure, let's see if it actually uses Ketsui. Yeah, it does. It uses Ketsui here and it uses Ketsui here. For whatever reason, when you translate it to English, it will use the word resolve here and the word determination here. But to be fair, you know, it's in this context, it's fairly interchangeable, I think. Similarly, we want users to have confidence to choose their own gaming experience. We don't want developers to set things up and guide them in a way that makes them feel like they're making the choice. We want users to choose for themselves. Considering the cost effectiveness and expenses, we were tempted to say, this outfit will be rewarded for defeating this boss, but we decided to go against that. Yeah, yeah, I completely understand. This system seems like it would appeal to people who like changing jobs. That's right. The wear not only affects parameters, but also increases the actions and skills available during battle, which can be further expanded through the skill tree. This broadens the range of battle strategies, so I think it's a game that many people will enjoy. Zack's role is to naturally convey to the player that this world is a little different from Origins. Original wa choto chigau. Okay. Yeah, it's to convey that like this world is slightly different than the originals. At least that's the way I think that's meant to be read. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be original game. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. What's happening here is that it's translating this word, which is well, I guess no, it's saying origin here. Kono sekai ga origin to choto chigau. This world's origin is a bit different, and Zack is a natural way to convey that, and he has an important role in this version of the game. Okay, I don't know what they mean, what that headline means in Japanese either, because it is saying the word. Yeah, it is basically saying it. I do think it means the original game. They probably mean originaru. Yeah, I think so too. But I think that's what it means. By the way, are Vincent and Cid the only 2 characters joining the roster? Hamaguchi. The battle members will only be the main characters. The goal of the remake series is basically to revive characters from the original version, so I don't think creating and adding new characters would be what fans want. So much for that rumor, huh? However, at key points in the game, just like in the previous game, Zack will make appearances and other guest characters will join as playable characters, and these elements are incorporated into the story. That being said, the basic style is to thoroughly customize and control the main characters. Very interesting. So there are going to be guest party members. Intriguing. So Zack will be appearing in this game. I'm glad you asked. Zack is often talked about in overseas media, but his role in the FF7 Remake series is to tell the story of a slightly different worldview and setting from the original through him. There are some slightly different elements between the original and the Remake series. The previous game depicted the existence of multiple timelines, interesting, but directly stating that in words would spoil the appeal, wouldn't it? Zack plays that role again in the game, so his screen time is even greater than before, and he's provided as an even more important part of the gameplay experience. Interesting. For those who don't know any Japanese, fukusu, multiple,
複数
and Seikaisen World Line.
世界線
This is in quotation marks here, so you can read into that whichever way you want to read. Steins Gate? Yeah, that's what I thought of. Speaking of which, Reno of the Turks also appeared in the video, right? He didn't have any lines this time, but as a replacement voice actor already been decided. Hamaguchi, it's decided. World Line is just a Japanese colloquialism for multiple worlds or timeline or whatever. It isn't a term used in the Western Anglosphere. I also think too that, I mean, we kind of have like, well, I don't know if that's true. I was going to say that like, we're probably like a little bit more hung up on the specifics of that idea, but I don't fully know if I can say that that's, but it feels like we are. But I'm also more lost in this sauce than I am in like, you know, Japanese discourse. So who will be playing the role? We'll talk about that another time. So, are there substantial lines of dialogue? Yes, we definitely have it this time. As this is the third and final installment, we made sure to depict the exploits of not only Reno, but also Elena, I'm pretty sure that's supposed to say, and the other Turks, so please look forward to that as well. Continuing onward, it also includes elements that complement the world of the work, such as stories related to Wutai that couldn't be fully depicted in the original version. Speaking of the Turks, will Wutai also make an appearance in this film? What did they translate that from? Oh, they translated Konsaku. Yeah, this work. Okay, I was like, what the fuck are you saying? This film. Okay. Will Wutai also make an appearance in this work? Wutai is not just featured properly, it's also featured thoroughly and completely. Okay, so lots of Wutai. Okay, I think Wutai might be the biggest region in this game, 100%. 100%. Because you know what I mean? It has like that whole corner of the continent to like itself. So, or like little like island, archipelago, whatever you call it. I don't know. I don't know my geography. But yeah, Wutai is definitely going to be huge in this game. Because just the region where Wutai is like depicted alone in the original game, if you expand that out to the type of scale that the re-trilogy games have, it's probably going to be massive. Are there any differences in the storyline compared to the original version? In the original version, despite being set up as a place of conflict with the Shinra company, it was depicted as a place with a peaceful atmosphere. That's right. Just like in Rebirth, the Shinra company, Wutai, Cloud, and Avalanche, various organizations are all moving forward with their own agendas and believing in their own sense of justice. With meteors floating in the sky and another threat looming in the form of a mysterious weapon, the film portrays with more realism than the original how their missions intersect and lead to the final conclusion. Locations like Wutai, which weren't essential in the original, are included to enhance the story and allow these points to be fully explored. For example, Gongaga area in Rebirth was well received by users, and by adding events that weren't in the original game, such as Tifa sharing some thoughts in the mental world, users were able to understand the story more easily. In that sense, Wutai has a very politically charged storyline. I mean, yeah, of course. You look at everything surrounding Wutai, it's absolutely going to be a pretty politically charged story. They've already been kind of building to that since Remake, you know, when they blamed Avalanche, and like Avalanche is part of like Wutai. Speaking of which, and this is a bit of a digression, is there any possibility that any of the people involved with Deep Ground, it should say, that appear in Intergrade will make an appearance? This time, the Midgar area will also be featured, and you'll be able to explore it. So I hope we can meet your expectations, including the character whose names you mentioned. Conversely, I'd like to ask about things that didn't appear in the video. For example, will Rocket Town appear in this work? Of course, it will appear. In terms of the storyline, Rocket Town was originally meant to be depicted in Rebirth, but when we considered the structure, we concluded that it'd be better to move it to the third game. They will visit it toward the end of the story, but it has been incorporated into the story of Revelation from the beginning, and I think it will turn out very well. So Rocket Town is confirmed for everyone who has been worried about it. Andrew, can't wait for Yuffie to find out Rufus is in charge of both sides, just like Palpatine. I think that's also going to be a great moment, right? Because remember that Shinra has been placing the blame on Wutai, and that's something that Yuffie takes really personally. So I do think that that's going to be great. This film, there's going to be a movie? No, there's not going to be a movie. Just to clarify for anyone who missed it earlier, the word used in the Japanese is the word konsaku, and konsaku means like in this work, right? Like, yeah, this work. And a lot of the times it's used in film terminology, but they also use it in video game terminology. And so Google Translate thinks to translate that as, I was trying to look for the word in the thing. It uses sansakume, sanbu sakume, which means like the third part. But it translates it as film, but it's not film. It means just a work in general. Usually it is used with film, but again, it can also be used with game. Anyways, what about Underwater World? The Underwater World will also appear in the story. I can't give you any specific details, but I hope you'll look forward to seeing how it's depicted in this work. Also, this is related to the original version, but the scope of this revelation is right around the time when you can obtain the summoned materia Knights of the Round. It didn't appear in the previous 2 games. But what about this time? Regarding Knights of the Round, I think there's no way we're not going to remake it. After all, for fans of the original, it's one of the unforgettable, iconic elements. In a sense, it's not so much because this is the 3rd installment in the series, but rather because it's a discussion that has come up frequently throughout the series. We're developing it with the intention of creating content that lives up to that. So I hope you'll look forward to seeing how it is expressed in the actual game. So yeah, should go without saying, but obviously Knights of the Round is going to be there. There's no way that they wouldn't put Knights of the Round in this game. Imagine a Knights of the Round boss fight. Probably has more phases than Rebirth's 14-phase Sephiroth fight. Yeah, I know. It's not just about Cloud and someone else, but it depicts the relationships of each and every character. I know this is a question I've asked before, but the story really does conclude with this installment, right? Of course it will be a conclusion. I am confident in this ending, and I feel that I am glad we were able to bring it to a proper conclusion. I think everyone is interested in whether it will follow the original story or if something will change. But as the conclusion of a series that has taken more than 10 years to complete, I believe I can provide everyone with an ending that I, as the director, can be satisfied with. I hope you will play it and experience for yourself what kind of ending it is. This is a very interesting statement because it's basically saying like something will change, but also maybe not actually. You know? You can kind of read into this either way, but I do think that they are clearly building up that something is going to change, whether that means to the extent of we're going to have a brand new ending, that things that didn't happen in the OG game are going to happen here in Revelation, or whether that's like different things happen revolving around the ending. There's an epilogue now. That's all like completely up in the air. He's saying buy the game and find out. That's what he's really saying. You know, he's not giving any of this away. He's trying to tell you that, hey, if you really want to know, buy the game. Other than that, leave me alone, you know? That's what he ultimately means. In the previous game, events changed based on the affections level system. Is that system also used in this game? Regarding this, there are some differences between Rebirth and this game. I put a lot of thought into the game design of the previous game, and I'm very happy with it. I don't think if I repeat the same things, it'll be appreciated by users in the same way. It's precisely because there are new changes in evolution that a work can be praised as challenging, so I don't think that simply sticking to a good format is always the best approach. The affection system in previous installments basically focused on Cloud depicting the story and game experience primarily through his perspective, so the affection system was portrayed as Cloud's affection level with someone else. However, in this game, while Cloud is an important protagonist, the focus isn't solely on him. Instead, the policy is to give each character some degree of attention and develop them thoroughly. Whether or not to make it visible to users as a numerical element like likability is another discussion, but the side elements prioritize which character each user wants to delve deeper into and learn more about. We've made a game where players can see how that intention is reflected in the gameplay, so I think it will be a slightly different experience from the previous game. So yeah, it seems like the affection system is not returning. If each player delves deeper into their own character, then it seems like each player will have a different experience with the ending. For example, are there any branching endings? Hamaguchi. I don't think ending the story with multiple endings is what users are looking for with this game. That's pretty much true. We all want that well-defined ending. Rather, as creators, we should provide a single conclusion that we can say, this is the end of the FF7 Remake series. That's why we don't want the main story to be swayed by the user experience. The side elements however, the side elements that expand upon that should be tailored to each player's individual game experience. It has to be a decisive choice, meaning that if a choice doesn't have weight to it, it's not really a choice. After all, if you can do it later anyway, it doesn't really matter which one you do first, does it? So the side elements that enrich the main story go as far as to change the storytelling itself in the gameplay depending on the user's choices. Each player will have a different approach, and as a result, the story itself will be different for each player. That's a clear difference from the previous game. Rather than one being better or worse, I think it's different in the game's concept. The previous game emphasizes that you could have the same experience no matter what order you played it, so you could play whatever you liked without worry. However, what we're emphasizing in the game is decisive choices. So depending on your choice, there may be stories you can't see and events you can't learn about. In this game, we've deliberately created such elements to make the user's experience of choosing different from the previous game. Yeah, the choice bit is interesting here. It sounds to me more like there's going to be like some really well fleshed out in-depth side content, and those side contents are going to have really interesting branching stories, and that sounds really cool. But it's not going to affect the overall story of Cloud and the main characters, I think. What has you most happy from what you've read? The philosophy around the airship and how much freedom they're giving the players from the start, and the balance between the main story content and the side story. I'm glad the remake project is ending. Square can't dedicate an entire section of the business to a decade-long remake trilogy that so far has seemingly only had diminishing returns, with each new entry being divisive since day one, and not in the way that creates interest, just in a way that fans constantly fighting way. I do think that like a new original game, maybe what one could call like a versus epic, perhaps. I think something like that as a trilogy would have probably generated more excitement, because it would have been something like new, you know? And it probably would have like went further on that premise, but I guess that has already sailed for them. And so, yeah, I don't know if they should ever do a trilogy again. I think that trilogies for Final Fantasies are probably done at this point. I think that each Final Fantasy game here on out is probably gonna have to be its own game, like singular game, which is basically how things were prior to Tin 2. So maybe not a trilogy, but a duology. That's possible. We will definitely not reduce the number of mini games. However, we want to make them easy to play for people who are not good at them. Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna make anyone happy. This is another question about an element that was in the original version, but is the slapping contest still there? I am also a fan of the original version, Hamaguchi says. So I remember the slap, but to be honest, it didn't leave a very strong impression on me when I first joined this remake project. As we worked on Remake and Rebirth, we realized there were a lot of fans who were looking forward to it. So I felt like we couldn't cut corners. We put a lot of effort into it, so I hope you'll look forward to it. The slap fight between Tifa and Scarlet is still there. Easy mode is confirmed, but a hard mode is confirmed for mini games too, so everyone wins. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Are most of the mini games from the original version still included, including the slapping game? That's right. People have said there are too many mini games, but I have no intention on reducing the number of mini games in this FF7 remake series. That is because the original FF7 had a lot of mini games, and that diversity is what fans have come to appreciate. The idea of not inheriting elements from the original series never crossed my mind, and I will never waver on the fact that this series is a game overflowing with diverse minigames. I just believe that by adjusting how it's played, we can make it less stressful for many people. I learned a lot from Rebirth, and I've incorporated that into this game. For example, in the previous game, minigames are often linked to battle progression and trophies, but I've streamlined that and made it easier to understand. So it sounds like Hamaguchi's resolution for people not liking the number of minigames was to make the minigames more optional than they were previously. So you don't have to do the minigames now more than ever. So if you want to skip them, if you don't want to do them in order to get like better gear, get better anything, any type of rewards, it seems like you don't have to do that. For anyone looking for that, I think that's going to be pretty good. I mean, it's truly optional content now, and you don't even have to do it to get the trophies, which I think means most people aren't going to do it at all. The whole argument around minigames is never approached properly by anyone. Were there too many? Maybe. Were there too many that required you absolutely perfect toy, and you had to do all of them to finish an area and gain access to new content like Gilgamesh or some fun materia and items? That is a problem, because then it is disingenuous to just say skip them. Oh, perfectly. Yeah, you have to play absolutely perfectly. Yeah, I think that's fair. So the minigame element reduces the impact on the schedule outside of the game, right? We try to make the rewards for the minigames as self-contained as possible within the minigames themselves, and we focused on enhancing usability with things like character skins that aren't related to battle strategy. Conversely, we grouped the battle elements that players really wanted to do into battle-oriented side content to create a clear distinction, making it easier for people who don't want to play those things to choose them. We've made two further improvements. First, just like the battle system has easy and normal modes, we've added easy and normal modes to minigames. For those who don't enjoy playing minigames, we've added a function to skip them. For example, people might ask, why can't you skip minigames when you can skip cutscenes and not see the story? So we've included a feature where you can try them out briefly, and if you decide they're not for you, you can skip them and they'll be marked as complete. Wait, what? Like, even if you have to do that minigame like the first time in the story, you can skip it? I hope I'm reading that wrong. I hope I'm like interpreting that wrong, because otherwise I've heard people lie and say shit like the main story of Rebirth has too many minigames, which is a lie. Cannon Trigger, thank you so much for the super chat. I agree. I don't think that the main story has too many minigames in it at all. Like, whenever people say that the main story has too many minigames, I think that that's fucking crazy. Like, it really doesn't. It's only when you're doing the side content that it has too many minigames. It doesn't have any more minigames than like FF7 OG, honestly. In terms of like the L choice, if you are so unconfident in your design that you're willing to let people skip it, why do it at all? That's like, yeah, it's like a fucking waste. Two of my friends quit Rebirth because of the minigames. That's crazy. We decided not to reduce the number of minigames, so we can't accommodate requests to do so. However, we made as many improvements as we could, and we're looking forward to see the reactions to Revelation. Brother, the fact that you can just skip the minigame or hit easy and just like get it for free, get rid of rewards for free, that to me is the most troubling thing that I've read so far in this whole interview. I extraordinarily do not like that. Extraordinarily do not like that. What? Because why even make it? Why even make, like, I get it, but this for me feels like way too hard. Like, they're trying way too hard to make everyone happy in such a way that I feel like is just gonna piss everybody off worse somehow than Rebirth. I feel like he should have just said, "F you, this is the kind of game I want to make," and everyone would have respected, you know, that a little bit more. Yeah, marked as complete, does that give rewards? My understanding is, yeah, it does. Maybe you're misreading it, maybe there's translation problems, but it sounds an awful lot like you can just hit the skip button and like, you need to draw a line and say, this is what I'm doing. If you're not with it, go somewhere else. This is a thing that I really respect about specifically Hidetaka Miyazaki, because Miyazaki has been asked so many times to like add an easy mode for Souls games, and he's like, no, I'm not doing it. This is my vision for the game, and if you don't like it, you know, and people love and respect that a lot. I think even if you don't like Souls games, you can really respect Miyazaki's insistence on that this is his vision and he's entirely uncompromising on it. And he's willing to lose the sales even. He's willing to lose people on the idea that this is my vision and I'm sticking to it. I remember so much bitching about the lack of minigames in FF15 and 16. The FF fanbase might genuinely be the worst out there. Yeah. I think this is also the thing too, when they try to make it like when FF tries too hard to be like the game for everybody, they also try to change up what kind of game FF is going to be to the extent of an entirely different genre, an entirely different, it includes so many different things. And that's a strength of FF in some ways, but it's also kind of a negative for leading the brand in a lot of other ways, because it ends up creating this thing where you have a conflict what things that FF should even include in the first place. And I think it always has fans at odds with each other based on what they like, if that makes sense. Vanita Sentiment, thank you so much for the super. Probably should have been where players have to play them at least once. Yeah, I think that you should have to play it at least once, me personally. Like, I think that you should have to play it. I really think FF15 had the right amount of, the perfect amount of minigames. Some of them just needed refining. Yeah, I think that there shouldn't be like an extreme number of mini games. I think that a good game should have like 1 to 3 mini games that are really well fleshed out. Rebirth had like a lot of mini games in it, but truthfully, if Rebirth only had Queen's Blood, I think it would have been pretty solid. Right? Like, I think people would have actually really enjoyed that. And that's not to say that like they should have deleted all the other mini games, just to say that like in general, I think you just need like Queen's Blood level mini game, and that's probably it for most people, right? Like a really good, really well thought out Gwent or something like that. And maybe if you want to go over, yeah, and like Chocobo racing, and like, yeah, honestly speaking, you only need like a couple, and then they just need to be really well implemented and really well thought out. I don't think that like a Final Fantasy game or any RPG needs like 1,000 mini games. It just needs like no, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that like Rebirth specifically. I'm just using Rebirth mini games as like, so like, for example, Kingdom Hearts says, I disagree. FF7 OG had mini games like every stage in most towns. Yeah. I completely agree, which is why I say that like, I think that Rebirth is different in that way, because that's kind of the point of FF7. But I'm saying that like generally in terms of like most Final Fantasy games or like most RPGs, I think most RPGs just need like 1 to 3 like really baller mini games, and they don't need like a ton, right? There should be mini games, but it should just be like a couple like really well thought out ones instead of like, you guys know what I'm saying, like generally speaking. Sting Duck, thank you so much for the super, and a big one too. Goddamn, my guy. My king, I agree with you. My only ad is Square Enix and Hamaguchi might be operating under different pressures than FromSoft. Creative risk and game success seem to be self-fulfilling for FromSoft for years, not the case with FF. That's really true. That's really true. But I really do kind of want them to have like the mentality, and this isn't just like Final Fantasy creators or game devs or anyone. I mean, it's like, for me, it's like all creators, right? Like whether you're a musician, whether you're an artist of like a visual artist, or a game creator, or a film director, or whatever you do, content creator, I want you to do a thing, and I want you to be like, fuck you, all of you are wrong. What's the meme? Like, I want this is what I want to see from more creatives in all fields, no matter who you are, like no matter what your field of creativity is. This is the shit I love seeing from creatives. Yes, you're all wrong. I think that is based. I love it. I was relieved to hear that the slapping contest would remain. The slap scene will definitely be included, he laughs. Just the other day, I was discussing the expression with the art director. I was like, I'm not going to compromise on this. A lot of people are really looking forward to the slap scene. I do think Hamaguchi does have a little bit of that in him when it comes to other stuff, but I think he kind of folded a little bit on the minigames, at least from the sounds of it. Finally, could you please give a message to fans who are looking forward to the release of Revelation? The theme of this game, as I mentioned in the interview, is determination, or resolve. It strongly embodies the resolve to move toward the final finale of Cloud and his friends. I'm sorry, I lost my place because I was thinking about final finale and I was like, Final Fantasy. I'm sorry. It strongly embodies the resolve to move towards the final finale of Cloud and his friends, which you have all followed for nearly 10 years. And to live up to that expectation, I personally, and as a team, are determined to deliver something great to everyone. So I hope you will all be determined to play along and watch with us. Rather than developers setting things up and guiding the user while making it seem like they're making the choices, we want the user to choose for themselves. I think this statement encapsulates what the game is. Liberation, aimed for. Actually, translating revelation as liberation here kind of goes fucking hard with this statement. Liberation, get it? Because you get to choose how you want to play. Many of the new features discussed, such as the ability to unlock all clothing at once, the freedom of movement provided by the Highwind, the enhanced freedom of exploration through Pico's growth, are designed with the player's choices in mind. The determination presented as a concept is the determination to accept weighty choices. Hamaguchi explained that the word determination, resolve, encompasses not only Cloud and his companions' resolve within the story, but also the creator's resolve to bring it to the definitive conclusion. This interview truly allowed us to feel the effort that the developers have put into bringing this long-running series to a finale. The game is scheduled for release in spring 2027. Very good interview. Okay, let's take a look at the RPG site interview. Okay, this interview starts with a question that is nuts. Like, holy crap, dude. It's bonkers, because this is a quote that's been used a lot in the community, and it's something that Hamaguchi is saying that, like, yeah, I don't know what you guys are talking about. RPG site says, back in 2023, Tetsuya Nomura said in an interview that Final Fantasy VII Remake will link to Advent Children. Is that still the case? And will players know how that happens when Revelation comes out? I don't believe we publicly claimed or stated that it's going to be exactly that. So I'd like for players to play Revelation and see for themselves what the conclusion of the journey holds and see about that. Bro said, I don't know about all that. I think you need to buy the game, actually. I'm glad Hamaguchi is just like, nah, I didn't say that. Because if why the fan base has latched on to something Nomura has said years ago when Nomura isn't the guy running the show anymore, well, he still ultimately makes the creative decisions, right? Like, he still named Revelation, so I'm positive that Nomura is still influential on wherever this story is headed, because they wouldn't have him like naming the game if he wasn't. I wanted to ask you about the new job style system. When did that idea come around? Like, did you envision it at all when you were developing Rebirth and doing combat improvements? Did you know you'd want to implement this later on? Damn, yeah, page not found. That's crazy. They did delete it. Yeah, see if someone can use Wayback Machine and pull it up. Anyway, Hamaguchi says, I think Battle Director Indo and I were aligned in this thinking that taking away something from existing combat system wouldn't fare well with our players who've come to love the battle system, the combat system, sorry. More so that adding on, we thought more so that adding on and kind of evolving what we built as a foundation would be better for this direction and would make for a much more fun experience for players for this title. Okay, why is it that you guys at Square, why can't y'all understand that this isn't just like the thing for Final Fantasy VII Retrilogy, but like the thing for Final Fantasy, actually? Why do they think it's just this one game that, like, oh yeah, people wouldn't like that? No, dog, it's like actually the whole series that people feel that way about. They know that, but don't give a I know. So in this way, players can choose, oh, we want to take Cloud, who's more like an attacker, and make him Black Mage Cloud, that's an attacker. Having that ability to customize, we thought would be the direction. On that note, I'm curious about the costume changes. Final Fantasy VII characters all have iconic, well-known looks. Why did you decide you wanted to give them costume changes? And do these apply across everything in the game, such as cutscenes? Hamaguchi. I think it's totally true. There's iconic looks with the characters for Final Fantasy VII. The fits, as we call them, are reflected in cutscenes. I try to think of it like how the battle experience that players may desire in controlling the characters, and then the actual kind of visuals it can, differ. And in that way, the fits, we wanted to be able to customize where players can choose fits, but the skins are also a different element you can choose. Okay, so it's like a transmog basically. For example, you might want to for example, you might want Black Mage Cloud, but in his original outfit he usually wears. In that way, the skins option can be accumulated in the game so players can choose their favorite look and style. Everyone asks about Wutai and Rocket Town, but I want to know if we're going to go to Bone Village. Here you go, chat, for those of you who are asking. Bone Village itself is not included, but Northwood and Temple of the Ancients will be able to revisit. So, rest in peace. I think Bone Village is the only location from FF7 that is being cut, but that's fair. I don't really think Bone Village is that necessary. I want to ask about Vincent, as his backstory is only vaguely hinted at in the original Final Fantasy VII, and then explored in further depth in the likes of Dirge of Cerberus. I know you've already said deep ground characters will be returning. Are Vincent's backstory elements, like in Dirge of Cerberus, something we're going to see in Revelation? Hamaguchi, we can't delve too much into the storyline just yet, but thinking of spin-offs you mentioned, like Dirge, our overall concept of Revelation is to pick up from those stories as well. So with characters like Vincent and Zack, those are explored. We can't say how much yet, but RPG side, we saw Vincent and Cid having a lot of synergy abilities together in the trailer, and you already have this huge cast of characters with a bunch of synergy abilities together. How did you decide to integrate Vincent and Cid into the part, and who they interact with? This was the same for the Fits too, but with synergy, we didn't really design it in a sense where some attacks are better with these two characters than others. We wanted players to freely choose what they like and have that be equally available for their choosing. So in that sense, yes, Cid and Vincent are joining the Swift characters and those synergy abilities and such. You know, from the creator side, that was kind of a challenge for us to make an improvement on. I kind of see too, because it's already like really complete as it is, I think. RPG site. One of the things you've mentioned in other interviews is that Turks will have a much larger role. And at the end of Rebirth, we see some fairly huge revelations for Rufus Shinra's character. Is he part of that? Will he have more of a larger role? In terms of whether Rufus will be directly involved and how much of it will be with the Turks about the storyline, we want the players to experience that themselves. There will be revelations on what the relationship between Rufus and Glenn and ties to other spin-off works. With Revelation, it'll also be a, you know, revelation. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is funny. Oh my god. So players will have to have a better understanding of the world and the story of these characters, bro. Dang, bros. This really is our Final Fantasy VII Revelation. Oh god, dude. Holy shit. RPG side. In the trailer, we see a brief shot of Ruby Weapon, and you confirmed the underwater area. In the original game, Ruby and Emerald Weapon have specific gimmicks, like the time limit. Is that an element you've thought about carrying over? Will Ruby and Emerald have these unique gimmicks or mechanics in their fight? For the specific battle logic of Ruby Weapon, and how much of it is an actual homage to the original game, we'd love for players to see themselves. But I will say that players will be kind of engaging with the whole world map. That's going to be part of the battle with Ruby Weapon. And in terms of the battle design, we could have made it into something more like a mini game specific to we could have made it something more like a mini game specific to the weapons, but we wanted to go in the direction more so of taking the foundation battle-like elements and then adding unique elements that are specific to each weapon. So yes, in that sense, players can enjoy that. I do wonder how many weapons in Revelation are going to be mandatory and how many are going to be optional, especially since it looks like we are seeing new weapons being added. Yeah, it's really exciting that the game is kind of going to revolve around those weapon fights. I'm really excited about each one of them having like their own kind of experience to them too, and how they're going to do it, and that they're not just going to do like, you know, like they're not just going to like mini game it out. And I think that's important. I was kind of concerned that with the weapon fights, we would just be like hitting feet the whole time. This is also something that like Maximilian dude brought up in his interview. And that's just like one thing I didn't want to do is just hit feet. Yes, I'm calling out Final Fantasy 15 right now. the most feet-smacking game. The Titan fight in FF15 is literally just like, yeah, dude, fighting feet. You parry Titan's toes. But it seems like they've put a lot of consideration into making these very formidable foes that are not going to be so easily taken down. Honestly, though, I kind of prefer more of the weapons to be optional than story mandatory. And the reason I say that is because I want the weapon fights to be brutally hard. I want them to be hard as balls. I want them to be rage quit, snap your DualSense in half, so hard, brutally rage quit the game, write the developers an angry note hard. So I feel like I would want more weapons to be optional than not, because the more, like, if they're not optional in their main story content, they can't be like brutal. And that was one of my things about the icon fights I didn't like as much, is because I feel like the icon fight should have been like, I think the icon fight should have been hard as fuck, right? Like, I think that should have been like some of the hardest content in FF15. RPG side, with Revelation, you have this big seamless world with the Highwind. What lessons did you specifically take from creating Rebirth into this new open world? What did you learn from the process of crafting Rebirth? Hamaguchi. It's not so much that like there was something we couldn't do in Rebirth that we can do now or try to do in Revelation, but more so like how can we expand upon the experience that we built in Rebirth? So I think in Rebirth, we covered the open world exploration of that experience, but in order to widen that and make it even more expansive, we thought about the exploration of not just the horizontal, but vertical and aerial space. So there's more varied modes of transportation exploring the maps, such as parachuting down to explore. As you raise a Chocobo, there's even more ways and places you can explore with the Chocobo. In that way, we really scaled up the degree and scaled of exploration that can be done from Rebirth. And I think it's something that can be a pleasant, really exciting surprise. When I was creating the scenery, I actually could see different scenery with flying a Chocobo, and it was amazing. RPG side, two of the biggest pieces of information I've seen so far is that you now have story choices that alter the way the story plays out, and Zack having a larger role. But we also have these different timelines introduced in Rebirth. Are those story choices going to interact with the idea of different timelines in any way? Hamaguchi. So first of all, at the end of the journey and conclusion that Cloud and the companions reach within the remake series, that is something we've conceived, and that's not going to be altered by the player's choices. That being said, the sort of conclusions that is going to be reached is not going to be altered, and we mentioned that the main theme of this title is resolve. So this is more tied to the resolve that each character has in their heart going into the final battle. And some of the choices we make may alter that what the player perceives about each character or understands about each character as they go into the final battle. Those are not so much related to the core storyline, but it's more about what we see and what we experience about the characters. That's exactly what I'm expecting, is that essentially, you know, the main story is the main story, but there are aspects to these characters that you may or may not get depending on what you choose to do in the side content, right? So there is player choice involved in what type of content you are going to see and what you're going to experience. But the overall story is the story of Final Fantasy VII, and it's not like you are going to like have the revive Aerith option available at the end. Or maybe, I don't know. But you may not have like the don't revive her. Whatever happens at the end, my point is, you will have no choice but to surrender to what the developers have written, is the point here. RPG site saying, now that we're close to the end, after all these years, I'm curious, when the game comes out and people have played the whole trilogy, what sort of legacy you're hoping it has? What kind of feeling are you hoping players have? As you know, Final Fantasy VII has these iconic and such beloved characters, and many fans may be wondering the fate of the certain characters within this story. But I truly want to make a game where, upon playing through the story, they would feel glad just to have been on the journey with these characters, just to have that feeling. In other words, buy my fucking game, bitch. That's what he's trying to say. No hate, brother. I understand. Now let's take a look, see if I can zoom this in. So this was the deleted interview that was deleted for whatever reason, we don't know. Thanks to Cammy in chat, we have resurrected this deleted interview interview from the grave. Please bear in mind that it might have been deleted for reasons. We don't know what those reasons are. But I don't know whether that means it contains information that Square Enix didn't want to let out, or whether there was some type of error in it. There could be any numerous amount of reasons for why they deleted this, so just bear that in mind with this interview. A new trailer was revealed yesterday. How close is the current development stage to the final version of the product? Hamaguchi. When we decide to release a video to the public, we immediately raised it to the production level, so the quality of the parts we shown is, in a sense, what we envision for the final product. In terms of the game as a whole, it's basically connected from beginning to end and already ready to play. However, there are still many areas whereas sets are missing, or where balance and lighting are not finalized yet. So we're currently in the final stages of polishing and integrating all of those elements. I read in an interview in another magazine that you can get the Highwind pretty quickly in Liberation, aka Revelation. How often can you actually acquire the How fast, I guess, can you actually acquire the Highwind? Remember, this is a translated Japanese interview for those who didn't catch that. Currently, we describe the timing of obtaining the Highwind as relatively early in the game, but this can vary on how much the player explores and how often they stray from the main path. Generally speaking, we aim for a place where players can obtain the Highwind in about 4 or 5 hours after starting the game, and after that, they can truly explore the world map freely, which is nuts, by the way, right? Like 4 or 5 hours, so basically you do the tutorial and then you have the Highwind. That's f***ing crazy, man. I really like that approach. It means that the entire game really revolves around you having the Highwind, which is something that I think that Final Fantasy VII actually should be. I think like you should get the airship from the start of FF17. From there, you should just be able to explore. I think that'd be cool. But whatever they do with FF17, I think that it is a game that needs a airship. Maybe not the start of FF17, but like 20 hours in FF17, I think you should get the airship and fly around. That soon. With the previous game, Rebirth, once the open world was unlocked, combat was fun, and there were plenty of quests, and to be honest, I ended up chasing side content more than the main story. At that time, it was one area at a time, but this time, is it correct to assume that the entire world is open world? If so, there are many mechanisms or signs to guide the player to focus on the main story. Hamaguchi. We clearly present the objective of the main story to the player at each phase, making it easy for them to choose between progressing through the main story or exploring the world map. In the previous game, areas were unlocked one at a time, so the design was such that the recommended level for the player and the difficulty of the content were roughly aligned by the time the player could access that area. However, this time, each area expands all at once. Therefore, even within a single area, the difficulty of content varies considerably. For example, this area is easy, but the difficulty suddenly increases when you go to the next area. It's pretty monolith-pilled, I think. This sounds a lot like maybe the way Xenoblade. Therefore, some players might think, I've done this and that in this area, so let's move on to the main story. While others might think, let's try tackling more difficult areas. More than the previous game, the way you play is left entirely up to the player. I think that sounds really fun personally. It gives you a lot more freedom than what Rebirth had, and also gives you the choice of like whether you want to tackle the main story or not, or if you want to just, you know, with the side content. You know how you'll have like a level 85 monster or something in the starting area? I was thinking about that aspect of Xenoblade, and that's how they'll keep like the whole world kind of relevant throughout. Yeah, you land in a new zone, but there's a cave in that zone that is like 10 plus levels higher than you. Yeah, that's like exact type of thing. So you land in a new zone, there's a cave in that zone that's 10 plus levels higher than your current level, and it's up to you to struggle through that challenge or come back appropriate levels for it. That's very Xenoblade design. Yeah, that's I think that they're trying to do like a Xenoblade thing with it, which I think is actually pretty cool. It's one of the aspects of Xenoblade's design that I quite enjoy. To put it in extreme terms, if you were to play in a way that ignores approaching the meteor and clear all the side content, would there be no time limit or other restrictions? That's not the case. There are aspects that are clearly differentiate from however, there are aspects that clearly differentiate the game experience between the previous game, Rebirth, and this one. In Rebirth, the decision of whether or not to do the side elements of the world map was left up to the player, but it was basically designed that you could complete it eventually if you filled them in order. While in Revelations is similar in that it involves filling in the content, it completely changes the game experience by diverging the gameplay and the storytelling of side elements based on the player's choices. One of the biggest changes from Rebirth is that there are many things that cannot be experienced in a single playthrough, which again, I think is exciting. Re-trilogy games in general aren't meant to be played once, you know? I've been looking like a crazy person going on tangents in my apartment to an invisible audience. It's time to hit that go live button. It's been too long. You need to make a video or a stream. If it's impossible to experience everything in one playthrough, will there be a new game plus or similar feature for a second playthrough from the start? Of course there will be. Hamaguchi saying, chapter select was included in both Remake and Rebirth, so he included it in this game as well. If there wasn't, users would probably wonder why. Yeah, of course we would. So we made it easy to explore various parts of the game after clearing it. However, I haven't told anyone this yet, but in previous games, including Remake and Rebirth, you could reach the level cap relatively easily after clearing the game, and it was designed with the intention of please play it thoroughly with the intent of starting over. But this time, we prepared a lot of content that is much stronger than the final boss, such as the weapons and Knights of the Round, which I'm sure you all have been looking forward to. Oh shit. Oh, damn, bro. No wonder they deleted this shit. I feel like this in particular is why he had to delete, or why they made this interview get deleted. This is too much. He basically confirmed that 1, you fight Knights of the Round, and 2, that it's post-game content. But it's also really interesting that like at the end of Revelation, you're not going to be max level like you are with Rebirth and Remake. You can actually still level up, and there's still more things to do, which I think actually mirrors normal Final Fantasy post-game. I think that's pretty cool, because one thing that I'm not a fan of in both the Re-trilogy and also FF16 is that like when you complete those games, you're at the level cap. You know what I'm saying? Like by default almost. And it kind of makes leveling up a little superficial, but in this game, it's not going to be, it seems like, which I actually feel like is pretty cool. So actually getting to the level cap in Revelation will mean something again, like it used to in Final Fantasy games. Whereas like where 16 Remake and Rebirth, I don't think getting to the level cap meant anything. So that's actually pretty exciting. Therefore, rather than assuming players will restart the game using chapter select, we have focused even more on how to encourage further exploration of the post-completion world than we did with Rebirth. Just in case they DMCA you, yeah, I know. Well, there's more info about leveling further down that may change your mind in this P. Oh, okay, let's take a look. So in terms of volume, is it safe to assume that it's overwhelmingly larger than Rebirth? That's what the translator meant. Hamaguchi says, it's difficult to say whether it's overwhelmingly more than Rebirth. Based on my own daily observations, I think the amount of content is greater than in Rebirth. Nuts. As I mentioned earlier, the gameplay and storytelling branch depending on the player's choices, so you can't experience everything in a single playthrough. If you were to include all the content in total, it would be overwhelmingly more. But in terms of the experience in a single playthrough, it's about the same. It's hard to say which it is. God, okay, so they did not step down the amount of content. So if you liked how much content was in Rebirth, then you have a lot to look forward to here. I think everyone has the impression that Rebirth had an overwhelming amount of content. Yeah. But even though we've added branching choices, I don't think you'll feel like it's less content than Rebirth, even in a single playthrough. It has the same or even more content, and the experience changes depending on your choices. So from the perspective of someone checking it out, it's almost overwhelming. I think so too. The content volume in Rebirth wasn't the issue, it was the pacing. Yeah, I think so too. It was the pacing, but low-key, it also kind of was the volume. I feel like it was like a little bit of both. But I think it was like, I think 80% of the issue was the volume, was the pacing, and like 20% of it was the volume, or maybe 30-70. Remember how they once said that Re-trilogy could have been a quadrology? I feel like Revelation is 2 games worth of content. It probably is going to feel like it, because I mean, Rebirth is such a long ass platinum that I can't even imagine more than Rebirth. I just can't even conceptualize it. It seems like there might be days when your entire schedule is just spent checking things. Well, I've been checking it constantly. The approach to the content was the issue. That's fair. I think you'll be forced to miss out on a lot of story beats in your run due to choice. Yeah, well, I kind of feel like that's tight though. I kind of feel like it'll be fun to go back with chapter select and see all the different outcomes. I think if like 80% of the mini games were just in the gold saucer only and didn't appear in the main story, the pacing of the story probably would have been a lot for the better. I think for me, it was a lot of the open world fodder that slowed things down and not so much the mini game, but also that too, I guess. But yeah, a lot of the open world fodder was kind of got a little tiring after a while. Even though you can go anywhere on the Highwind, you mentioned that there are places where enemies are too strong if you enter without preparation. Again, this is sounding a lot like Xenoblade. If you focus on the main story, there will be a sudden increase in difficulty where the player levels suddenly jump and you cannot proceed without leveling up somewhere. Basically, the question is, will we be unable to proceed unless we include side elements? Those are two things I'm conscious of. We've included several areas where recommended level differs slightly between completing the main story and moving on to the next stage. This is intentionally intended to encourage players to explore the world map a bit. Given the amount of side content available at each level, we've adjusted it so that you can reach the appropriate level and proceed straight to the main story just by playing around with it a bit. We haven't put any unnecessary obstacles that would force you to go all over the place to progress. Even if there is a slight difference in the recommended level, we balanced it so you can push through the main story if you really want to, even if it's not possible. So you can kind of skill your way through things, even if you get, even if there's a level difference. Probably if you're really good at action games and you have like a really strong materia build, you can also probably get through things that you're not supposed to. So that sounds pretty good. This is all so much info. This is all so much. No wonder they took this down. Yeah, bro. I think that Hamaguchi just started yapping, and I think he said a lot that he wasn't supposed to say, and I think that's why they took this shit down. I think Square was like, yeah, you are not supposed to say all this. Because I don't even know what they talk about for the rest of this marketing cycle. I feel like everything that can be said already has been within this first week. And one more thing. For those who are still worried if there's a difference in level you won't be able to get through unless you're good at battling, we prepared an optional feature. There are times during the game where you'd like to play some side content, and this option will automatically adjust the recommended level to match the progress of the main story. If you turn that on, you won't need to do any side content at all. When you reach that point, the recommended level will automatically raise to match the story, and you'll be able to play from there. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan if I'm honest. This sounds too frictionless to me. It sounds too frictionless. I'm sorry. I don't like that idea because we're already talking about like all mini games can be skipped. I thought you might have thoughts on that part. Yeah, like what the fuck? I don't like enemy scaling, but if it's a menu option, like an easy difficulty, I'm okay with it. Yeah. Bro is too accommodating to LARPers. Yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah, let's read this. Personally, I'm a little sad I've included it. Personally, I'm a little sad I've included various elements in the world map, but I understand there are people who just want to enjoy the story. While the game is generally balanced so you can manage without any option, those who are unsure can use this feature to enjoy a more comfortable gaming experience. Speedrunners will love this. Yeah. I wonder if Hamaguchi was asked by someone on the team to add this, if he's sad about it. I do wonder if it wasn't like, I feel like this might not have been Hamaguchi. I feel like this might have been Square Enix corporate being like, you need to butter up the tube. You know what I'm saying? You need to make it so that people can just fall through it. Lube the tube, brother. It needs to be a fucking slide with grease on it so that everyone can just slide through to the finish line. I need friction. I want friction in my games, right? You know, I want I want it to be tough sometimes. Get through the game. This seems like a response to Rebirth's complaints about too much side content. Just have an option to play the story only. The only way they thought to improve the pacing is to include a mode where you can ignore all the side content. I know it. I don't fucking like it. I fucking hate it. I hate it. And I'm not hating on the game already, but I'm just analyzing my conception of the idea. I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like this game has to sell well, to be fair. So my counter argument to that would be games with more friction do actually tend to sell well, and people are looking for friction in their games. And I think that like the option that if the game gets too hard for you and you aren't able to progress, the option for that is lowering difficulty. That is the option. I don't think the option is making it so that you can just skip the game. You can just not engage with the game. That's not something I agree with personally. I don't know. I do feel like this is not like Hamaguchi deciding this. I do feel like this is like a Square Enix exec saying like, hey, everyone has to fall through the tube. Like there can't be people left behind or anything like that. So yeah, it seems like a very one size fit all solution to fix the pacing. If you want better pacing, then skip all of our side content. Otherwise, play most side content and the game will be twice the length. Yeah. Kingdom Trigger, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. I disagree, NSP, because some people just play FF for the story, not me or you. It's not a Souls game where everyone is playing for their friction. So my pushback on that, there is an option for that already called easy mode, right? Like I think that is the option to skip that, or at the very least, you shouldn't let people do that on the harder difficulties, right? So I think the option to have a frictionless game should be available to you in the form of the game's easy mode. But I think that, but easy mode is way too easy. Right? Yeah, that's fair. But like, you don't have to play the whole game on easy mode though, right? But if easy mode is too easy, then what you're saying by that is that you're also saying that easy mode is too frictionless. Think about that. So you do want some friction. Exactly. So you don't like frictionless game design. Nightbreaker, thank you so much for the super chat. Correction. The option for that is to get good. Based as fuck, brother. I don't think that the games should be so like, and to be clear, I don't think that like everything should be Souls. I just think that you should have to do a thing, and there shouldn't just be a button to just like be like, I don't like the thing, skip the whole game. I think there should be some friction. Like I don't think it should be like at that point just watch a playthrough, right? Normal mode should have friction, right? Especially if it's the one option that's available during the games during when you start the game, right? The first playthrough experience when you start the game. This is something I really didn't like about say Final Fantasy 16, for example, is that like Final Fantasy 16 is also the most uber frictionless game ever, and unless you play Ultimaniac, which you can't play the whole story on Ultimaniac, it's purely an arcade mode, you can't really get friction in that game for the most part. This recommended level option just puts you at the intended difficulty of the main story for players who want to skip the side content. It keeps the friction you lose on easy mode. Yeah, I guess so. While the game is generally balanced so that you can manage without any options, for those who are unsure, can use this feature to enjoy a more comfortable gaming experience. I felt you put a lot of effort into accessibility in the previous game as well, but this time, including the discussion of level adjustments, it seems like you've taken a step further. What aspects of feedback from Rebirth led you to thinking this way, or were there any user comments that were particularly helpful? Yoshi P took the difficulty thing with 16 seriously and made Dawn Trail normal content actually hard to the point where people whined about it. Good. Make people play the game. After the launch of Rebirth, we received quite a few comments that there were too many minigames. We believe that the charm of the world of the original Final Fantasy VII lies in its diverse nature and the variety of content in minigames. and the remake series possesses, So we made it clear that we will not be reducing the number of minigames. Surprisingly, many people took this positively. However, regarding the complaint that there are too many minigames and it's overwhelming, the solution is simply for players to choose not to play them if it doesn't suit them. But in Rebirth, the game's progression was interconnected. For example, by receiving materia from Chadley after completing content in each area. Even though they say you don't have to do it, when you try to collect master materia or strategize in battles, you end up thinking, I guess I have to play the minigames after all. And I definitely felt like that was true. This time, instead of making rewards uniform based on attributes and the nature of world map content, we've changed the rewards to suit each type. For example, battle content will reward you with materia, and minigame elements will reward you with customization items that minigames or skins for characters. For example, battle minigames will reward you with materia, and minigame elements will reward you with customization elements for that minigame or skins for characters and weapons. By aligning the rewards to those not directly related to battle strategy, we rebalance the game so that players can easily choose to master battles, but I'm not interested in skins, so I don't really need to play minigames. I think that's fair. Because I think at that point, the minigames truly become optional, and like if you don't want to do them, or if you just want to stick to the part of the games that you enjoy, I think that's a fair way to balance it. Speaking of minigames, the editorial department has specifically asked me about snowboarding. Are you putting a lot of effort into snowboarding this time around? We put a lot of effort into the minigames. Of course, snowboarding is included as a minigame that you can play at the Gold Saucer, but that's not all. When you look at Final Fantasy VII as a whole, snowboarding is a very symbolic element, isn't it? So we prepared a setting in the story that is fitting for it. I hope you'll look forward to seeing how that is incorporated into the story. That was something I was very curious about as well. In the original work, there was a feeling that a very serious scene would immediately be followed up by a sudden and unique development. So I was looking forward to see how they would tackle that head on this time. I think the timing of when snowboarding appeared in the main story is designed to give players a good surprise. Also, now that I'm thinking about the friction stuff, I hope they don't add the God mode to Revelation. Not right away. You don't need catch-up mechanics for Revelation because you're already at the end. So I hope to fuck that's not included. Changing the subject slightly, what role does Chadley play in this? Kansaku, yet again used, not film, in this work. Is it similar to his role in the previous work? Chadley's role has changed significantly since the previous film. This time, we've kept the same flow from the original story, but where the activation of the black materia awakens the weapon and a meteor appears in the sky. Earlier, I mentioned that Cloud and his friends acquire the Highwind, and Chadley creates his own dedicated space in the Highwind to study meteor. He then takes on the role supporting Cloud and his friends while holed up in there analyzing and researching meteor. I hope you'll look forward to seeing how Chadley interacts with Cloud and the others in the actual gaming experience, but his role has changed quite a bit in line with the transition from Rebirth to Revelation. Interesting. Josh, thank you for another super chat. Easy mode does not compensate for challenges designed to be brutally hard. This is a no-win situation. I remember people complained about Rebirth's hardest content. You can't win. Being a dev sucks. It does suck. You're 1000% correct. Because no matter what you do, people are always gonna hate it. They're gonna be like, what the f? You made it too hard. Okay, now you made it too easy. Which is why my belief is this right here. For developers, I think this is what you have to do, is you have to just be like, no, you. You're all wrong. You're all wrong, and I'm doing the thing I want to do, and I don't give a somebody gave me $100 million to make a game, so I'm gonna do whatever the I want to do. La 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 la. I think that's what you have to do as a dev. Like, really, you just gotta like make whatever the you want to do. Fans be damned, honestly. And yeah, you just have to do what you think is right. Because if you listen to people, you'll be guided the wrong way. You can't make like the best art by listening to what fans are saying all the time. In terms of Chadley, I think that Chadley is going to have this moment that is going to be so strange in Revelation. I don't know how to describe what I'm thinking of, but I think he's going to have this moment that players are going to really think of him differently. I feel like we will have have a boss fight with Chadley. Because I keep thinking about that line with him talking about Cloud's unlimited potential. And there's just a lot of weird lore stuff happening with Chadley that I don't know if he'll be a boss fight or what, but he's going to play like some type of important role in Revelation that will have a deep impact on the story. Chadley is still going to chime in far too often, isn't he? Hey Cloud, it looks like you're close to a thing I need for my media research. Hey Cloud, could you pick up that device over here for my media research? Yeah, I hope not. I hope they don't like continue to like have him be like the modern gaming, if you know what I mean. So will we no longer have to do things like talk to Chadley on the field and start battles simulator as in the previous game? Those elements are expressed in a different way this time around. Interesting. That's all he said, but hopefully that means that summons will not be VR. There'll be something on the world map that you find and you'll be able to get the summon materia for them. Next, let's talk about combat. 2 new playable characters, Vincent and Cid, will be added. Could you tell us again what kind of combat styles these two have? In terms of type, Vincent is somewhat similar to Yuffie. Just as Yuffie's battle style changes depending on whether she has shurikens or not, Vincent can also switch freely between being a close-range attacker or firing guns from a distance, depending on whether he is in beast mode or in human form. The control feels really good, and I've always liked how Yuffie feels to play, but Vincent is also a lot of fun to control, and he's become a popular character among the development staff as well. When it comes to Cid, you can think of him as being similar to Red 13. He's an attacker with a slightly optional element, but if Red 13 is an attacker that excels on the ground, then Cid excels in the air. He moves around as if he's floating and flying in the air, and has a wide variety of aerial attack patterns and can damage airborne enemies over a wide area. They are differentiated in the sense of Red 13 is on the ground, Cid is in the air. I'm into that. As I said, I don't think there should be a jump button for all the characters. I think that every character should have like a unique like option for like if they can jump or not. I don't see not having engaged in side content as friction. It's more of a time thing. Telling certain people that they need to play 100 hours for when they only want the core 40-hour FF story is a unique problem for the FF series to resolve. 100%. I think that like obviously you shouldn't have to play like 100 hours of content to like be able to proceed. But I think that like you do want level to be significant in some way. Yo, oh my god, Afrojack with the 10 gift subs. What the hell? Bro, also thank you for becoming a YouTube member too. Afrojack, at EDC last year, I went to go see your set and it was amazing. So thank you. I still have videos of it. I will share it on YouTube and I will on Twitter, and I will tag you in it. Thank you so much. No, this isn't a bit. That's the real Afrojack. Thank you so much, bro. Like, thank you watching my content. I just feel honored, bro. Thank you so much. But to the point about friction, I do agree that like in what you're saying, my solution though is make the game more concise. I think that's how you keep the friction in the games, but then you don't waste people's precious times. So keep it like high friction, but then, you know, make it concise. Because if you really think about it, FF games have only gotten longer. You go back to like Final Fantasy VI or 7 or 8 or 9, you know, those games have like 100 hours of post content, but they're really not 100-hour games, really. Like if you do everything. But that's just one way they could solve. Could you tell us about the wear system, which is similar to the job system that will be added this time? Are there 4 fixed wear/job sets for each character, or is it a system where you can choose 4 jobs of your choice? Yes, chat, I said 6, 7. Okay, so this is something that I'm really interested in because you're saying friction more than Hamaguchi said resolve. I know. This is something I'm really curious about. So let's see what he says. Isn't just about this particular game, but we generally don't want to guide players by saying use this character. For example, we have combinations of cooperative techniques for all characters, and regarding outfits, if we were to say Cloud has Black Mage, but Tifa doesn't, then people who like Black Mage would only be able to use Cloud. Therefore, the intention is to give all characters the same job, then allow players to customize and choose according to their preferences. Each character has 4 slots to equip clothing, and the goal is for players to choose how to combine them from clothing of the same attribute according to their own preferences. So my understanding is that there is just 4 jobs, right? If I'm like not misunderstanding. Not gonna lie, if fits were exclusive per character, I'd prefer that. Give them jobs that fit their personality, like how FF4 did. Yeah, I don't know if I like the idea that everyone can just do these 4 jobs. Like, I feel like, wait, 4 slots? Why would they need more than 1 fit slots? Yeah, I don't understand either. He said 4 job slots. This is sounding more complex. I thought if this translation is 100%, yeah, this translation is not 100% accurate, so we don't know. But, okay, like for now, I think this is just kind of like a wait and see thing. Because I really do not know what the fuck this job system is. And the more I read about it, actually, the more confused I am. They need to do a Fits deep dive trailer to clarify all this for reals? Yeah. Because every interview that we read, I get an entirely different impression on what Fits is supposed to be. 32 jobs is too costly to make. Yeah, it probably is. Unless they do it something like Stranger of Paradise, where each job is kind of an evolution of each other. Combine them from clothing of the same attribute. That might be new info. I thought Fits didn't have attributes. It didn't look like it did in the trailer. So now I'm like, does Fits change the character attributes or not? We know that it gives you unique skills. Have you watched the FF Union video? No, I have not watched it yet. They mentioned that OG FF7 was supposed to have jobs, as well as Cloud being a Mystic Knight. That's actually interesting. I actually really didn't know that. That's a cool find. Regarding the differentiation of jobs through clothing, for example, would Black Mage learn spells that they wouldn't learn as Freelancer, or would it just be a stat change? Anyway, Hamaguchi says, of course, there will be expansion of commands and action, so it's not just a simple change in parameters. Naturally, the abilities that can be used with that outfit will also increase. This time, the skill tree has expandability, even for outfits, so you can develop the skill tree. So as you develop the skill tree, you'll be able to use even more as a Black Mage. You can rest assured that this is not a change in appearance and parameters, but some things that completely promote the feel and individuality of the character. So Folio still exists, yes. And I think that's been kind of talked about across these interviews. But like, what I'm so confused about is like, it seems like there are specific folios for each job, right? Like, this suggests multiple ATB abilities per job. I'm like kind of confused on everything, right? Like, as I read more, now I'm like, yo, what? How much more is there to this, right? I think Tifa was using a cooperative ability in yesterday's combat trailer. So cooperative abilities are still present in this game. They mean synergy. Of course, on this point, I share the same basic idea as Battle Director Indo. In a game trilogy like this, if we were to remove existing combat systems such as synergy and only introduce a new wear system just to make the battle system feel fresh in the final installment Revelation, we wouldn't get the support of many fans. There would be people who said, oh, I like synergy. Basically, we felt that we needed to broaden the range of choices for players by adding something to the combat system we had created in Rebirth. Adding too many elements would make the battle system seem complex and difficult. So in the early stages of development, we discussed what to add to give Revelation a new feel. The reason we ultimately arrived at the idea of customizable clothing is that, in a sense, character individuality equals performance has been fixed throughout the original game in previous series. For example, if we add another layer of customization, such as Cloud being a warrior-leaning attacker on top of the base of Cloud being a warrior-type attacker, it doesn't conflict with the materia system, and those who don't need it can continue to play as before without any customization options. It started with the idea that incorporating elements of the job system, which is synonymous with FF, would be a good approach. But naturally, users would expect that if we're going to call it wear, then appearance must also change. With the number of party members increasing, the sheer volume of costumes multiplied by the number of jobs becomes enormous. So we had a lot of discussions with the artists, but we're determined to see it through since we said we'd do it. Very interesting. I still feel like the more I read, I'm still not sure how to imagine this. For example, is it possible to choose the Black Mage's ability in Cloud, but keep the default appearance plain? It's possible. The strategic aspect of battles and the enjoyment of the visuals are, in a sense, contradictory. I think there are users who would dislike being forced to adapt they don't like just for the sake of strategy. Naturally, equipping clothing will change your character's appearance, but we've also implemented a separate, higher priority skin system. Even if your character's performance is that of a warrior, you can change them back to the original soldier outfit or to other outfits obtained through exploring the world map. I also have the costumes from the previous game's Rebirth from the start. The most natural question, of course. What? There's Tifa's swimsuit? Yes, it is possible. You can even choose to fight in Tifa's swimsuit. Because the characters are so iconic, I think there's a high demand for players who want to play in these outfits. So we've made it relatively easy to choose. You know, it's funny because Creative Studio 1 has done this in like literally every sequel they've ever done at some point. They're like, okay guys, costumes. Magic costumes that they implement a job system in 10.2. They even in Lightning Returns, of course, there's a job system, and also costumes were kind of a big point in 13.2. And then finally, we have Revelation, where they're implementing a job system yet again. Some people will absolutely decimate their story experience. Yeah, I know. And that's kind of the consequence of giving people the choice, is that some people will kind of ruin it for themselves. But again, that's kind of like what the choice, I mean, it's up to you, right? The system where changes performance and skins reminds me a little of Final Fantasy X too. Were there any discussions during development about drawing inspiration from past titles, or about including something because you liked it? Rather than being inspired by past works, Indo and I decided to implement a job system. We strongly felt that if we were going to include this feature, we had to include a skin appearance change system as well. In the previous game, Rebirth, you could change outfits, but only in limited locations. This time I felt it was essential to easily be able to switch outfits from the main menu. If you're facing a boss and you change your setup to defeat it, and your appearance changes too, and you think, I absolutely don't like this look, your motivation will drop. We felt that a skin function that allows you to easily change your appearance separate from battle strategies could lower user motivation, so we implemented it as a set. Yeah, that being said though, there is no way I'm going to use literally anything other than the character's default outfits. I'm sorry, but it's Final Fantasy VII, and for me, that's how the characters should look. It's fine in New Game Plus, but in my first story-focused playthrough, it almost feels like using a cosmetic mod in like the first playthrough. It just feels wrong to me. I want the characters to look how they're supposed to look, and then in like a second playthrough, then we can do it. I'll probably use them in exploration, yeah. Like if I'm around in side content, sure. When I'm doing story content, I want Cloud in that soldier outfit. I don't want him in a warrior outfit. Yeah, it just looks ridiculous, and it doesn't fit the tone of the story, which I think is really easy to just ruin the tone of the story for yourself with the game. Like for example, in Final Fantasy 15, I think it's called, what was it called, like a mariachi outfit, but there's that famous meme where, like, you know, Cindy in like the opening scene, and she's like, you must be the prince, and Noctis like peeks up from under the car and he's wearing like that mariachi outfit, and it's funny, but it also just kind of like in a very casual way shows just how immersion breaking an optional costume can actually be during those scenes. I feel like it's a great New Game Plus option. Changing the subject, after the new logo was unveiled yesterday, 3 visuals featuring Cloud, Aerith, and Sephiroth side by side were also released. Does that essentially mean they're recreating the print on the original FF7 disc? You can be sure that there is an homage to it. Also, there's something talked about on social media in the blank space drawn on below each character on the character screen. Is that simply an homage to the original work, or or does it have some kind of meaning related to future developments? Many members of the development team, including myself, played the original game when it first released, not as creators but as fans. So our own desires as a sense of homage inevitably crept in at key points. So we hope you'll see as a reflection of that. Holy crap, you're still on? I know. Regarding the logo for Liberation, the FF7 logo, or Revelation/Liberation. The logo is surrounded by blue and green light, and what appears to be a white materia is depicted. Is that meant to represent Cloud and Aerith? Not this question. If I were to say that based on the designs on the characters, it might sound like I'm showing favoritism or giving different levels of importance to each character. So I didn't really think about that. I aimed for design lines that would invoke or give off the feeling of the world of Final Fantasy VII, such as the materia and holy. Also, as some users have noticed and pointed out, I feel the intention of bringing colors in the design of the original FF7 logo at the very end has been conveyed quite well. Yeah, I really like the logo of Revelation. I think the logo of Revelation is the best of the 3 logos by a mile. Do you think they'll revisit part 1 and make the combat systems across all the parts cohesive? Same with leveling, would be amazing to play all 3 as one larger game somehow. I think if they were to do like an FF7 final mix, that'd be cool. And like bring all the games up to the same parity. Yeah, I think that'd be great. Like bringing back everything from Revelation back into Rebirth and bringing Rebirth and Revelation stuff back to Remake. Yeah, that'd be great. I don't know if they'll do that, but I think it'd be cool if they could. The fans have a certainly high level of understanding of this work. Conversely, with such a high level of understanding, there might be a backlash if the upcoming Revelation deviates too much from the original. On the other hand, if it's exactly the same, the meaning of it being a remake will be diminished. What were you conscious of when trying to strike that balance in Revelation? Hamaguchi. I hope that players will find out for themselves whether the story will be the same as the original or drastically changed by actually playing the game. Rather than focusing on specific plot developments, I personally feel incredibly grateful to have been involved in the development of this trilogy for the past 10 years, and to have been so deeply involved with this title. Similarly, for fans, this game has characters and each character has their own fans. There's a history of each character loving and supporting others, spanning about 30 years since the original work was created. That's why we strongly want to deliver a work that makes people think, I'm glad I followed this character and this world. Whether that's the conclusion of the story or the overall gaming experience, I hope you'll look forward to it. But that's my fundamental feeling. Whether you're a fan of the original or someone who started with the remake, my top priority is to deliver a work that makes you think, I'm glad I've been supporting the series all this time when it's finished. I think most of us will feel that by the time this is all said and done. This will be the last question. With this, Cloud and his friends' story in the remake series comes to an end. However, you yourself have been running non-stop until now, and I'm sure you still have a long way to go. First of all, I think your primary goal is to complete this game, but what kind of game would you like to be involved in after that? You better say Final Fantasy VII, Gucci Mane. You better say 17. You better say 17. That's right. First of all, I am currently the director of the Final Fantasy VII Remake project. At the same time, I am also the head of Creative Studio 1. Therefore, I am responsible for the other games we are producing, and I am already involved in projects other than this one. However, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop directing games in the future. Of course, I want to continue releasing games that I'm personally involved in, and I will continue to do so. I hope you'll look forward to seeing what kind of titles they'll be. I'm also looking forward to seeing what kind of games many fans are looking forward to and their reactions. Thank you so much for your sharing your valuable insights today, and I hope you'll look forward to seeing. I don't even know if there needs to be more news on this. This is too much. This is too much. And they're giving it to us all at the start. I think they kind of need to chill on the news a little bit, personally speaking. This is so much. This is so much. Like, God damn, this is so much. But I do think it's good because we have a lot to like bite our teeth into. And I think you can read all this and be reasonably excited about Revelation.